They smiled for the camera, and I didn't even realize I was already erased. At Thanksgiving, my parents insisted on a perfect family photo. Everyone gathered close, my brother, his wife, their kids, front and center. I stood at the edge, half cut off, but I didn't say anything. Later that night, the photo was posted in the family group chat. That's when I saw it clearly. I was completely cropped out. No message, no explanation. Just a "Happy Thanksgiving from our family" heart. I stared at my phone, feeling that old familiar silence, the kind that says you don't really belong here. The next morning, before dessert, I handed my parents a plain envelope. No name on it, no warning. My mother laughed nervously and said, "What's this supposed to be?" I just smiled and said, "Open it. You already removed me. This just makes it official." She pulled out the paper, and her face changed instantly. My mother's hands trembled slightly as she unfolded the paper. Inside was a simple note with numbers, addresses, and a small check. I watched silently as confusion spread across her face. What is this?" she stammered. I leaned back and said calmly. I shook my head gently. "That's exactly the point. You didn't notice because you thought I'd always be there. But just like in the photo yesterday, I'm not invisible, and I'm not to be taken for granted." The room was silent, heavy with understanding. This wasn't just about a picture. It was about respect, acknowledgment, and finally, balance. And deep down, I felt satisfaction. Quiet, simple, effective. The next morning, the house felt different. Breakfast was quiet, but it wasn't tense. It was reflective. My parents moved more cautiously around me, their gestures more thoughtful. No dramatic apologies, no excuses. Just small, almost imperceptible changes. My mother poured my coffee without saying a word. My father left me the largest slice of pie without comment. Even my siblings seemed to glance at me differently, recognizing that something had shifted. Throughout the day, I noticed subtle signs. The bills I usually handled silently were now acknowledged. The small favors I did, like running errands or picking up groceries, were noticed and quietly appreciated. It was a silent, slow-moving change, but it was real. I didn't need loud apologies or grand gestures. The envelope had done its work. Even in casual conversation, my parents asked for my opinions. They paused before making decisions they once would have taken for granted. Every glance, every word, reflected the lesson they had learned the night before. And I smiled quietly to myself. Revenge doesn't always have to be dramatic or public. Sometimes the quiet, thoughtful approach hits the hardest. For Thanksgiving, I didn't need a huge toast or a speech. The day had already changed. Subtly, permanently, and in a way that respected the bond I still wanted to maintain with them. I realized that clever, understated revenge could teach lessons without breaking the family. And that sometimes was more powerful than any argument or confrontation. As the day went on, I watched my family interact in subtle, different ways. It was quiet, almost invisible, but the changes were there. My parents seemed more aware of me. No longer just background noise, I felt like my presence mattered. Even my siblings started consulting me before making jokes or decisions that once ignored me completely. That evening, as we cleared the Thanksgiving table, my mother finally spoke. We didn't realize how much you do for everyone. We were wrong." I nodded calmly. "I don't need thanks," I said. "But recognition matters. Respect matters. And being invisible has consequences." My father gave a small, almost embarrassed smile. He didn't make excuses. He just acknowledged it. For me, that was enough. The envelope, the quiet gesture, the subtle revenge, it had worked. I hadn't embarrassed anyone. I hadn't yelled or caused a scene. I had simply reminded them that every action or inaction has value and consequences. That Thanksgiving became a turning point. It wasn't about anger anymore. It was about awareness, respect, and family balance. Sometimes the smartest revenge isn't dramatic. It's quiet, clever, and unforgettable.
year, I realized you don't need to shout to be heard. Sometimes the silence speaks louder than words.